Hi, good evening everybody, and welcome to Aye Right. This is the fourth show. This is a light-hearted look at politics in general and Scottish politics in particular. Over the next half hour or so, we'll take a wee look at what's happening currently and anything else that's caught our eye. The show is hosted by myself, Graham Dallas, and the one and only, the great poet, Mr. Sean Moore. Over to you, Sean.
Evening, Graham. That was a quick week, wasn't it?
It was.
And once again, they've let us back. Thanks, Kevin, for letting us use your facilities. And hello to the folk that have tuned in, and looking forward to hearing your patter again. Leave your comments.
Okay, I think we'll crack on, Sean, and we'll have a look at the first clip. Let everybody see what we've been talking about this week.
What you got?
Also remind members not to touch the microphones.
I'll try again. Tuition fees, yes or no?
More young people.
Tuition fees, yes or no?
More young people from a working class background.
Tuition fees, yes or no?
Yes or no?
Tuition fees, yes or no?
What I say to you is, can I also remind members not to touch the microphones?
Okay, I'll try again. Free personal care, yes or no?
Nicola, do you think it's right?
Free personal care, yes or no?
I'm going to answer your question.
You haven't answered a single question.
Can I also remind members not to touch the microphones or consoles during this?
He says that we must save the British Union, so it can save the Scottish working class. But when the Tory party's re-elected, so we'll be looking like an ass.
Sorry about that, folks. That was my fault. Switched off the wrong mic again. Basically, it was Citizen Smart, Sean's pal there, singing to the tune of Lion Eyes. But anyway, sorry about that, guys. He's singing about Anas Sarwar. I'll maybe play that wee clip at the end rather than the outro again for you, because it was really quite good. But this is Anas.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was actually. I'll tell the truth on that one. Not only are we terrifying the Tories and the Unionists, Graham, but we just did the guys for the Eagles on the phone, that Glenn Frey and the other dude on. And they're like, we're sending my lawyers down, you're not playing my music.
That's what it was.
Alan Smart, the master of the political parody. Get a wee listen to it later on.
Aye, we will play that as the outro, because it was very clever what he done back then. So yeah, anyway, this is Anas Sarwar, the latest in a long line of Scottish Labour leaders. Sean, he's doing your way. What do you know about this boy?
Aye, another VJ like myself, man. I thought when you shouted Sean, I was the next candidate for the Labour leadership. You know, I must be due a turn at it. Aye, he's the champagne socialist, isn't he?
Oh, he certainly is.
The very walking entity of that. I love that clip though, man. Just looking at John Mackay. John Mackay, he just lit the blue touch paper, stood back. Let Nicola ragdoll him. As we saw yesterday, she's a formidable woman when it's 6 against 1, but that was 1-on-1 there. The poor guy had no chance.
Who did he mind you? Standing there.
He was heartless, man. He was like, He was like, Mr. Bean, don't touch the don't touch the mic.
And then,
But do you know that was quite endearing. It was like there was like a wee innocence there, you know. Some of them are right widos and hucksters, but there's a wee innocence there. That's a wee boy when he sees a sign that says wet paint, don't touch him. He's just got it. Aye.
let's have a wee look at what I've got in Annis, because he's turning out to be what is a classic Labour politician these days, you know. He was born in 1983 and privately educated at Hutchison Grammar in Glasgow, where he now sends his son to be privately educated there. Now, I don't have a problem with that, but it doesn't really stand up to what I thought Labour stood for. And then his
It's a
father...
bit of the few rather than the many, isn't it?
Isn't it? And then
That's all.
his father stood down for his... You know, he got a wee job in his father's cash and carry. Then his dad stands down as an MP. He gets put in there and he wins the election based on his father's work. But ever since 2010, Annis has never won or has never been elected to any parliament by the people of Scotland. But in 2016, he was... You know, he did get a list seat in the Scottish Parliament. He was handed a wee list seat. Seems to have been handed an awful lot in his life, Annis. But despite he's highly regarded in politics in general and across the chamber in Holyrood. Everyone including Nicola Sturgeon speaks very highly of him.
All right.
Aye, everybody just seems to think Annis is a nice boy.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy. He's not the brightest, but he's not brought us any trouble. He never brings the police to the door. He's a good boy.
Who can we get to do that job that will not cause any problems? Get Annis.
That's true.
Annis, you know.
But I mean, and I think the obedience is a big part of it, because he's a total placeman. The Scottish Labour branch decided that he wasn't good enough to be leader a few years ago, and they picked Richard Leonard quite overwhelmingly, for what I remember.
That's right.
But Leonard said things like, "We're going to fight firms that don't pay the living wage. we're going to end the tax dodges on private schools." He said kind of socialisty things, Leonard.
Aye.
So now that Keir Starmer's in and they've got rid of Corbyn, there you go. There's our man in Scotland. There's he can look after the Scottish branch office.
Aye.
And he'll daze his tail.
That's it. He's a
Monica might know what did she was tell.
No, I don't think she's a nice girl. He's a nice boy, you know. So looking at his political values and where he's placed on the left, you know, privately educated. You know, he works for a party that believe in paying a national living wage, and in 2017 they were wanting people paid £10 an hour, but Annis's family were hiring people at £750 an hour, which was the lowest they could go. So you know, I think he's a wee bit mixed up in his political values, Annis. You know, he's I think he must have... I can see him walking down the street like Mr. Bean, you know, and coming to the two doors, and on the left's the Labour Party and on the right's and he's giving it...
Aye, what
finishes up with
go for. But in the end, maybe paid to hedge his bets, because the talk we can down the street, like any high street, all the shops are suffering and they're all closing down. And I think these two parties have kind of amalgamated now, and they've just called themselves the Twin Cheeks Party. So it was a win-win, whatever one he chose,
Going for a wee merger, right enough. You couldn't put a flag paper between the Labour and the Tories in Scotland now, could you?
But you talking about mistaken though, there was an email he sent out to all the Labour members a few years ago, and he made the quote that he was going to redistribute wealth from the many to the few.
Don't touch the mic!
Aye, was it autocorrect, or was it a real Freudian slip?
Oh, man.
What do you really think, Sarwar?
I think his lifestyle and his politics he would have probably been better turning right that day than left. But anyway, he's a nice boy, so he fits in, you know. But maybe his political style, I was thinking. But then when we saw that, you know, debate with Nicola Sturgeon, he couldn't answer a question. He kept answering a question with a question. Dead like Boris Johnson, you know, just keeps bouncing the questions back at questions. Again.
It was back to the wee boy thing. It was just pure. I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Separatism. Divisive referendum. I can't hear you. Fucking.
But he's a nice wee boy. Come on.
He's a good boy, but.
He's a nice boy. Okay.
He's good to his mammy.
So we're going to look at him then. Maybe he's a conviction politician. You know, maybe he stands up for big issues. But I found it hard to really, in the 10 years he's been a politician, I found it hard to find anything that he really stood up for other than the bedroom tax. He was big in the bedroom tax down.
Aye.
Get right into that.
Which was my fair play to him in that one, because that was him standing shoulder to shoulder with your Tommy Sheridans and your traditional Labourites and your trade unions and all that. So that must have been when he got his credentials and proved himself. But again, that was a different age. It was only a few years ago, but politically, it was a couple of landslides ago, and that's when Labour took it on themselves as their job was to oppose whatever the Tories did.
Aye.
And any younger people listening are going, what? Labour used to just, as a matter of principle, oppose the Tories.
Aye.
No, they just oppose everything SNP day and side with the Tories, and what a mess. But yeah, fair play to him for that, man.
My only problem with his conviction as a politician is, as I say, that's the one big thing I could find that, you know, he stood for. And then when it came to vote for it, where was Anis?
Right in the front of the queue, man, holding a banner.
No. He was out of town. He was back in Pakistan doing a wee lecture to students, the boy. You know, your big moment, Anis. You know, it was your big... We overseen his dad probably, because his dad's now the governor of Punjab. He's now big into politics over there. So, and I kind of...
So the wee fella walked the walk. No, he talked the talk, but he didn't walk the walk.
I'm just wondering, but if his dad's over there, and when Anis goes over there, whether they're trying to talk the Pakistanis into going back into the British Empire, you know. You're better off in Britain, you know. Don't be independent, you know. It's
or even amalgamate with India again, like they did even more recently. Come on, we'll let these guys a few 100 miles down the road run, Mark. That'd be a good idea.
Let's give our money to India. Oh dear. Right, okay, but let's give him a wee bit of slack, Sean, because he's a nice boy, you know. Anyway, so do you know when he got a job as Labour leader? This is a classic. Do you know what his first big statement was when he got the job?
Another vote catcher. We are a people.
He sings that when he's at Ibrox, I think. He does get down there. But what he did say is that the desire for Scottish independence doesn't exist outside a Twitter bubble. There you go, A Twitter bubble. So
I don't even go on that Twitter, man. Jesus.
We're missing
so, there's a man, his finger on the pulse, the Scottish electorate,
Do you know, there's a guy that claims to know what's happening in Scotland, but Anis, you know, if you're going to get that...
At least his branch manager, his head office manager, down south, Starmer and all those guys, they know what's happening in Scotland. They're reading the polls, and they're all kicking themselves. What's going to happen? And he's the man on the ground. He's the man in the colony, and he doesn't know what's going on.
But that's it. You know, he's Keir's phoning him, Anis, how's that independence thing going up there? Doesn't exist up here, boss. Doesn't exist. You don't need to worry about it. Nobody wants it. You know, it's just it's gossip on Twitter. Don't you worry about it. I've got it sorted.
Blow over. But maybe that's him proving that he is a real Labour man, because that kind of head in the sand denial in the face of everything that's changed, in the face of all the evidence, but still ploughing along and keeping no, we're still... Maybe that proves he is a Labourite.
But I don't know, maybe he needs to... I think if he's wants the people of Scotland to vote for him, I think, Anis, you're going to have to get yourself into an independence party. You know, you're going to have to, if you want to speak for the people of Scotland, you're going to have to say what the people of Scotland are now saying, you know. But I'm sure he doesn't want to give us any advice, you know, but what I would say to you, Anis, because I'm giving him it anyway, I don't know if you want to give him any, but being a nice guy in politics lets you climb the political ladder, as we've seen. He's gone up without not doing a lot. But for your own credibility, if you're going to speak for the people of Scotland, get them to vote for you, Anis, and then you can speak for them. I think that's fair, eh?
Aye. Was it they call that? I think there's a technical, a mandate. A mandate. Aye. Get him a mandate.
And get yourself on Twitter. Get rid of that burst that bubble, Anis.
Advice for that. Well, the other agony aunt here, if we're going to dispense free advice, I would say to Anis, much like yourself, just come out to our side, man. Come out to the good side.
Aye.
And don't worry that people will say you're a turncoat, you're worse than Galloway, because really, nobody believed that you were Labour to start with. You know what I mean?
Right,
Well,
right, I think we'll move on to our next clip, Sean. I've got a nice wee clip for you to see here.
he'll be back. We'll hear more from him in coming weeks.
We will do. So, Sean, have you any idea what's going on in this clip then?
Oh, it was lovely. It was, well, obviously it was a Scottish Tourist Board, the promotional video, wasn't it? Come and see our lovely vistas, our lovely sites and historic castles. Visit the Royals if you want. And by the way, we're quite progressive with the green energy. Really nice. But be a bit dishonest photoshopping it and putting the sunshine on it though. That was a bit misleading. Was that San Zamora? Is that what that was, the White Sands?
Well, you know, you've got to try and promote, but unfortunately it wasn't really about what we've got. It's about what the Queen owns in Scotland. Now, call me naive, but I thought wee Lizzie brought the family up for the fair fortnight every year, you know, up to Balmoral for a wee holiday.
They got the big fete up there, didn't they? The big
I thought that was all part of the summer holiday, you know, up to the coast and that with the buckets. But no. Apparently, the Queen's actually making an absolute fortune up there. I don't know about you, Sean. Do you know how the Crown operates in Scotland? Any idea how they operate up here?
I want to do, mate, because I go on these Rewild in Scotland pages and all that, and I want to know where all the foxes and all the birds of prey and all that are going. And apparently these poor landowners, it's really, really hard to earn a shilling for big estates these days. That's how they've got to have shooting parties and stuff like that. So I don't think they are earning any money, Graham. That's a bit unfair.
Well, that may be so, you know, but she does, I mean, she might not be earning that much, Sean, you know, maybe a wee bit more than us, because they own all the foreshores and the seabeds, and there's not a lot of money to be made out of sand, you know, so, but recently it was announced, not on the BBC, of course, that the Crown Estates will earn £100 million per annum from the licences of their offshore wind turbine sites. And then we brought in a land tax to try and get these people who have inherited all their land, you know, try and make them pay a wee bit for it. But the Crown Estates, obviously, which is what the Queen calls her business in Scotland, the Crown Estates, they immediately appealed the land tax on their 3 shooting estates, and they won every one of those appeals. And the beautiful thing about that is, it's no wonder they're laughing in that clip, because they've got a 50,000 acre estate in Balmoral, and they pay less in tax for that estate than the local pub pays down in Braemar, or the local primary school pays in Ballater. I mean, you couldn't write a script, could you?
That's incredible, man.
No,
That's a good business plan. I thought the Star Wars business model was good, but that's incredible. That beats a lot of them, man. That's brilliant.
classic, man. Sitting up
That's
there.
good.
So
Yeah, yeah.
but as you say, you know, that it's a wee bit difficult to make money out of those estates. You know, you can see that we flew over the house there. You can see, you know, they're maybe needing a few new windows here and there. You know, it's maybe not quite the croquet lawn's not maybe quite as smooth as it should be. You know, so maybe she deserved that wee. You know, that wee tax rebate that she got.
The lovely irony there is all the parents of these kids at this local primary school are the patrons of that pub. Will probably say, "No, that's great. Thank God they're here. They bring some business to the area. They bring tourism to the area because there's a few extra souvenirs get sold. There's a few folks stop in for a folk of chips. That's great. They're keeping the area alive. They're keeping the industry going, and they're sucking the money out of it, man."
And maybe wee Johnny will get a job as a servant up there, eh? But anyway, so what can we do to make them pay after independence, Sean? I think we should just tax it to the hill.
You're talking guillotine? No. Just financially, right? Cool.
No,
one step at a time. Hey.
I'm talking about something that they fear more than guillotines.
My John McClane t-shirt talking, it's not me. But we can do, we're already doing me things, because even in the backdrop of this, when I read into it, down in England and Wales, they're getting all the money, and it was like a bidding war, and BP and all these companies were just throwing money at it, which is fine. So they get hundreds of millions every year. But in a few years' time, all the consumers will have to pay it back in their electricity and gas bills.
That's true.
But in Scotland, her business is run by an agency, a public agency, and the money still goes to her. But there's a wee bit of monitoring goes on it, and they're able to say, well, you're only paying so much. Make sure you stick to your promises as regards reinstating things and passing on savings and stuff like that. And it's one of these wee things. Occasionally you see where the difference in Scottish law and English and Welsh law makes a world of difference. But I call it the Morrison's car park effect. Like up in Scotland, you can go and park in a Morrison's car park, and there's all these signs saying, "Don't park here, this is a private car park." And you go, this is Scotland. And when they send you a fine or whatever, you just ding it. But down in England and Wales, you report for it and all that, and they actually get the money out of you. Like, Scotland, fuck it out. It's the Morrison's effect. Right, it's little things, but they make you feel better.
Well, I tell you what, you know, the good thing about it is, after independence, she can't sell the land. Although she owns it, she's not allowed to sell it. So we just need to we can have a wee bit of fun, just keep putting up the taxes until we eventually go, here, take it back.
Of course.
But anyway,
she sells up,
right. Have a wee look. Is any funny comments coming through?
There was somebody.
Enough money to wipe her ass.
Kay Leishman had an interesting theory on the woman's personal hygiene, the Queen. Enough money. But I think that would involve the Queen being double jointed, Kay. But it'd be worth trying.
They could wipe each other's asses with their faces. Sorry, that's it. Okay,
Ian Nicholson's taking no responsibility for his MP, and rightly so, mate. Rightly so.
Oh dear. Right, okay, so we'll jump on to I think we've got one more clip to go. Okay, right guys, a wee bit I need to give you a wee warning here. Step back for your screen, because you're liable to punch your screen when you see this one. So you've been warned.
Tell the dog to go and hide under the table before it gets booted.
Love her or loathe her, Nicola Sturgeon is the cleverest politician in the country and the most dangerous. Cleverest because she has presided over a disastrously high death rate from COVID and a dire performance in public services, particularly health and education, and yet she is perceived as doing a great job. She walks on water. Extraordinary. And she's the most dangerous politician in the country because she wants to break up the most successful political union in history. By peddling the snake oil of separatism, Nicola Sturgeon threatens to do far more damage to both Scotland itself and the rest of the United Kingdom than any pandemic. The damage from a pandemic is always temporary, but the damage from this toxic project to rip Scotland out of the United Kingdom will be permanent. Now, the SNP rail about Brexit, a Brexit which restores the fishing waters back to Scottish fishermen and which opens up the potential to sell Harris Tweed, Macallan whisky and, yes, Tunnock's tea cakes to the rest of the world tariff-free. The SNP, so fed up with supposed rule from Westminster, it wants to dispatch more of its powers even further away to Brussels. An independent Scotland in the EU isn't half as independent as it is now, because economically, diplomatically, militarily, Scotland leaving will be nothing short of a catastrophe for the Scottish people. Unfortunately, the arguments for Scottish independence are about as credible as a sighting of the Loch Ness Monster. And the plan between an economically illiterate approach of independence, that versus building on a unique and historic partnership with England, Northern Ireland and Wales, is the difference between sink or swim. That is the choice for the Scottish people. It is sink or swim. So, Nicola, you can take your damaging and divisive plan of separatism and stick it up your sporran.
Well, what a roaster, eh? I tell you what, I must have punched my screen about 3 times, man, when I first saw that. Whoa. I think he's getting Nicola Sturgeon mixed up with Boris Johnson there, man. What a...
I'd like to stick him in a studio with wee Nicola, 1-on-1, see how smart he was then.
But we need to sort out our presentation skills here. Yeah, it's amazing the amount of English presenters we've had in this show so far, the way, you know, I've got nothing positive to say about Scotland. We had that Majid Nawaz saying Scotland was part of his country. And last week we had Ian Collins saying that he was saying that independence was a new must-have designer handbag up here, that you know, we only wanted it because it was fashionable, not because it was you know, it was possible or, you know, feasible. And now we've got this nutcase Mark Dolan spewing out his blatant propaganda. Sean, what do you know about this guy?
Fair play to you, Graham. I don't know where you're getting the clips from, but week on week they're getting worse and worse, these characters. I don't know, but a couple of weeks' time you're going to have the spirit of Enoch Powell or something on here, man. Paul Pot. They're getting worse. But this one was interesting because I'm going, nah, it's a parody. That's no series. Nobody's a... And I'm thinking... And I looked him up, and his job title is CD or whatever. He calls himself he's a comedian.
He is a comedian.
He's a presenter. First and foremost, he's a comedian.
Oh, he's a comedian.
He's also got a presenting job. Because I'm thinking, Rick Mail wasn't really Alan Bastard, and Alf Garnett, the guy that did Alf Garnett, he wasn't really a crazed raving racist. You know, but this guy is what he says he is, which is absolutely clever. It's brilliant because if you say to him, look, you were doing a chat show there about politics and you went a bit over the score with these Scottish people, that's okay, I'm just a comedian. Or if they say to him, hey, you're a comedian, what you doing? I'm like, that's no, I'm entitled to talk about these issues. Or people will watch what he says and think, okay, this is a legitimate programme about politics. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's got a suit on and it's a studio, and they'll fucking believe it. But he's always got that get out if he goes too far. Oh, it's only kidding.
But he is a right wing boy, isn't he? He does a lot of work for. He does a lot of work.
Aye, that's how he's done work. He hosts events for the Daily Express. Rest my case, my lord. BP, Imperial Tobacco. I think you mentioned the NHS.
Aye, but
you know, it was like, you're not bothered about the NHS, you do gigs for Imperial Tobacco.
Getting on some work. Well, that's a funny thing you should say that, because, you know, he went on about the disaster we had made in the NHS. Not that we look into that. And Scotland spends more on healthcare per person than they do in England. We've got more GPs per 100,000 than they do in England. We've got more nurses than they do per 100,000 in England. We've got more consultants than they do in England per 100,000. And we've got more hospital beds per 100,000. In our A&E department, we see around 90 patients every 4 hours. And in England, it's around 80%. You know, we're 90, they're 80. There's just... But let's...
Yeah.
We shouldn't let facts get in the way of propaganda, you know.
And do you know what, Graham? Maybe that's why we're hearing more and more of these English commentators coming out with this, because you and I have known it for a long time. The people that are joining us know it. 50% of the population in Scotland knew it 7 years ago. Now the people in England are realising that, and they're going, how come Scotland's got, wait a minute, how come? So I think that's why we're seeing more and more of these mainstream English guys putting the lie out there. It's not just to keep us subdued. I think it's to keep their own people subdued as well. But no, a horrible right-winger, man.
He was also going on about the fact that, you know, Sturgeon wants to break up the most successful union in the history of the world. Now, that kind of depends whether you're taking it from our perspective or from England's perspective. He's kind of half right there, isn't he? Because if you're sitting down there and you're getting all these resources coming in. But hey, you know, and what about the EU? Surely it's a wee bit more successful than well, again, perspective, but again, don't let facts get in the way of propaganda, you know.
He threw in that bit of the EU, because, I mean, right away, there's your Brexiteers getting happy as well, but it was quick sound bites. There was nothing to back. You've gave a lovely long list of stats there, but he had nothing to back up anything, and it was just a scatter approach to the extent I'd my wee jock bingo card out. I'm like that.
Oh, you'd have got a full list there.
Whiskey, Loch Ness, double score with a K, turnips, Harrock's Tweed. You know what I mean? It's boom, boom.
Just you're saying a list of things, you know, like what was it he said? They had the snake oil of separatism will do far more damage to Scotland than any pandemic. Nothing to back up, obviously. The damage of independence will be permanent. Brexit will allow Scotland to sell products to the rest of the world. Tariff-free! You know, how's that working out? The SNP will give more power to the EU than it gives to Westminster. An independent Scotland and the EU will be half as independent as it is now. Not one of those statements were backed up, you know. But let's not let facts get in the way of propaganda.
And again, that's maybe, we know, we can laugh about it now because we know they've got nothing to back it up, and that's what folk need to remember as they get into the next 7 weeks before this Holyrood election. Okay, we're not doing canvassing, but you'll still be having conversations with people. And when we get all these arguments, there is nothing to counter them. Every single one of them has been blasted out the water, and we've now got the courage to just laugh at them and let folk know this. But I was kind of, again, looking at it from our perspective, I'm like, am I downing this guy just because he's really mega anti-indie and pretty right-wing and all? So I looked up a couple of these other clips, and it was just a week or so ago. He got into a lot of trouble for cutting up a face mask on that very same show. And the statement he made was, wearing a mask is the new woke. It's state-sponsored virtue signalling.
Oh, nice one.
I used those kind of dog whistling terms, woke and virtue signalling, that the right wingers hate. Oh, it's a lefty thing, is it? So he's now putting it out there that if you wear a mask, you're a crazy lefty, and it's not a good British right thing to do.
You can't do the smoking, you know. He'll be getting his money cut for it.
Aye, these Imperial Tobacco profits, that's right, aye.
He should have
maybe Imperial Tobacco pay them to do that.
Cut a wee hole in it so you can get the fag in the mask, you know.
Do you know what? I heard there was somebody that was at school with Matt Hancock's sister's ex-boyfriend, and if you give him 10 million, he could probably source a few thousand masks with holes in them.
Aye, well, aye. Aye. Right, so he concludes anyway that Scottish independence is about as credible as the sighting of the Loch Ness Monster. Well,
is that Loch Ness?
Loch Ness Monster, aye. Well, I used to think it would. I would have more chance of spotting the Loch Ness Monster than I would have watching a right-wing comedian. But I'm left feeling a wee bit encouraged by that statement now, because I've just seen a right-wing comedian.
That's true. Aye,
hen's teeth there, boy.
It was where it's hen's teeth. Because you and I were talking about getting guys on to kind of counter what we're saying, and genuinely, for all we know, loads and loads and loads of folk all over Scotland in all areas of the entertainment and live business. I couldn't name any right-wing comics, which does speak volumes, doesn't it?
I'll just have a wee look before we finish. Anybody get any funny comments? Have I missed anything? Unfortunately, yes. I think you're all talking to each other, aren't you?
That's fine, aye.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry if I've missed any. But anyway, listen, that's about us for this week. So, yeah, that's all. It has. But I think, as I say, what I would say to you is I hope you enjoy the show, and we'll see you back here same time next week. And it's but we will leave you with a wee clip, the Sawar clip that I kind of messed up at the start there, just so you can hear Citizen Smart, because he does a nice wee parody, doesn't he, on ours. This was back in the day when he was standing to be a Labour politician. I think he wrote that. But anyway,
when he was just a junior liar, now he's a senior liar.
Aye.
That's progress.
But anyway, Sean, so it's all I'm going to say night everybody from me and from Sean.
Good night. Cheers, Kevin. Cheers, everybody, for tuning in. See you again soon.
We'll leave you with Anas Sarwar.
Anas Sarwar seemed to find out how to open doors with just a smile. A rich old man, so he won't have to worry. He inherited his seat and went and style.
Can I also remind members not to touch the microphones?
Free prescriptions, yes or no?
You use this as a badge of honour.
Free prescriptions, yes or no?
There are failures in our NHS.
Can I also remind members not to touch the microphones?
I'll try again. Tuition fees, yes or no?
More young people.
Tuition fees, yes or no?
More young people from a working class background.
Tuition fees, yes or no?
Yes or no?
Tuition fees, yes or no?
What I say to you is,
can I also remind members not to touch the microphones?
Okay, I'll try again. Free personal care, yes or no?
Nicola, do you think it's right?
Free personal care, yes or no?
I'm going to answer your question.
You haven't answered a single question.
Can I also remind members not to touch the microphones or consoles during this?
He says that we must save the British Union so it can save the Scottish working class.